Here we are, time again for another episode of Tired Old Queen at the Movies. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click that button below. Now let's go see the one and only Steve HAYES.
Oh, Johnny, happy gay pride. I thought this year we would do one that I've had a lot of requests for over the years. So we're going to do Robert Aldrich's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane from 1962, starring Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, Victor Buono, and Marjorie Bennett and Maidie Norman. Now, this was taken from a novel that Joan had found and took to Robert Aldrich and told Robert Aldrich when they were shooting Autumn Leaves that she'd always wanted to make a movie with Bette Davis.
We know each other very well.
They went to Jack Warner and he approved it with a small budget. And Joan went to Bette, who was starring at that time and driving everyone crazy, in Tennessee Williams' Night at the Iguana. And the rivalry had always been there. Bette felt that she was always the workhorse in the professional and that Joan had it easy during the MGM years. She used to refer to Joan as that whore at MGM.
I'm sorry.
She was not great. When Joan appeared backstage, Bette was not thrilled. And she said, "Hi, Joan, I'm busy. What do you want?" "I've got a project for you and I." "For you and I? What?" "It's called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane." "Huh, I'll leave it. I'll read it." Well, she read it and she called Joan up. She said, "I get to play Jane, right?" "Well, of course." Joan said, and that was it. Deal done. They shot the movie in 30 days. Basically, this is the premise. It was two sisters, Jane and Blanche Hudson. When Jane is little, during vaudeville years, she's a child star. They even had Baby Jane dolls made, and she's her father's girl. And she gets out and she sings with him a song called "I've Written a Letter to Daddy."
His address is heaven above.
She's a big sensation. As they get older, vaudeville ends, and Joan becomes a big movie star. And she even talks the studio into hiring Baby Jane and getting her movies. And every one of Jane's movies bombs. And Jane just kind of becomes more and more alcoholic.
They just didn't love you enough.
And one night, there's an accident. Evidently, Jane drove the car into Blanche when Blanche was opening up the gates, and Jane was drunk and hits Blanche with the car, and Blanche is paralyzed. So now we go up to the present, which is 1962, and they're recluses. Jane keeps Blanche on the top floor of the house because there's no elevator, so she's trapped on the top floor in this bedroom, and she takes care of her. And by this time, Jane is just, her mind is gone, and she's all that bitterness and all that anger, and gradually she starts tormenting her sister, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And she keeps thinking she's going to make a comeback. So she puts an ad in the paper, and Victor Buono answers the ad, and his mother's played by Marjorie Bennett. And she's this Cockney mother, and he says, "Mother, call up this number and pretend to be my secretary." And his mother says, "All right, lovey, I'll do that. I think I would make a pretty good secretary of that." She calls him, "Hello, I'm Edwin Flagg, secretary. Mr. Flagg was very impressed by your ad. He'd love to come in." "Oh, he would? Well, how nice. We'll send him over." "I will do that." Victor Buono's whole performance is great because it's all based on reaction. It's all a reaction. He's listening to Bette and he'll go, he'll play the piano and he's playing "I've Written a Letter to Daddy." He's playing and she's singing.
Instead of a stamp, I would kiss that.
Meanwhile, Blanche's only friend is played by Maidie Norman. She comes once a week and looks after Blanche, and she says,
"You know what makes her do things like this. She's sick and she's not getting any better.
It's time to get her into a home. I'll come and live with you. I'll come and live with you anytime." And Blanche is really afraid. Basically, it's just from then on, it becomes a horror story. It becomes, how is Jane going to torment her sister more and more and more?
I don't quite understand. Is this some kind of emotional disturbance you're talking about?
Yes. Yes, she's emotionally disturbed.
There have been myths about this movie for years, and the animosity between the two stars. They When they shot this movie, they were on their best behavior. They hadn't had a hit movie in a long time, and they needed it. The budget was so low, they had Betty's favorite cameraman, Ernie Haller, and they couldn't afford to do process shots when Betty's driving the car. So Ernie Haller, they strapped him on the front of the car, and they had Betty actually driving around West Hollywood with him photographing her behind the wheel because they were on such budget restrictions. They were on their best behavior. They were pros. Betty designed her own makeup, much to Joan's terror. She came out with this white chalky makeup, and she said, I don't think that Jane ever washed her face. And it made sense. And it gave her this pallor, this white pallor, this mouth like this. It was so ugly. And at one point for this mirror, she does this monologue she would do in her act in vaudeville, and she says, now, when I'm very good and do as I am told, I'm Papa's little angel, and Mama says I'm good as gold. But when I'm very bad and answer back and says, then I'm Father's little devil, and Mama says she's got the breasts. Now I wish that you could tell me, for I'm much too young to know. Oh, it's so hard. It's heartbreaking because she sees herself in the mirror, really sees herself. It came out 2 years after Psycho, so people were kind of ready for this kind of movie. Psycho had really opened the doors for psychological horror. This also started what was known as the Hag-ploitation genre, in which for the next few years, famous old actresses took on roles like this. Olivia de Havilland did Lady in a Cage, where she's blind and kept in a cage by James Caan and Ann Sothern. She did Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte when she replaced Joan Crawford in Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. Barbara Stanwyck did The Night Stalker. Joan did a whole series of these. Straight Jacket, I Saw What You Did, Berserk, Trog. That was her last one. Trog. You know, she has this Neanderthal guy that she takes care of, and she'll say lines like, let me talk to Trog. I understand him.
Please, Trog.
So this was one of the first movies that they took a percentage on, and they really made a lot of money. The big problem with the two of them when the Oscar push came, because Betty got nominated, had the flashier role, and she got nominated for the Academy Award, and Joan did not. And Betty went on talk shows like Jack Paar and said, Waters didn't want to hire a couple of old broads like us. And Joan called her and said, please don't refer to me as an old broad.
But you are, Blanche, you are.
And so this really started the thing up. And when she got the nomination, Joan said, well, Betty could have been a little gracious about it. I was in the movie too, and she never mentioned me when she was doing her Oscar campaign. And so Joan got even. And Joan called all the New York nominees, Geraldine Page and Anne Bancroft, who were up for Sweet Bird of Youth and The Miracle Worker, agreed to have Joan accept the Oscar if they won, because they were doing plays and they were busy. And Oscar night came around, and Betty was nominated. It was her 10th Oscar nomination. She was sure she was going to get it. She was going to be the first person to win 3. The other competition in that year was Lee Remick in The Days of Wine and Roses and Katharine Hepburn in Long Day's Journey into Night. But they read off the winner, and the winner was Anne Bancroft. And legend has it that Crawford pushed her way past Betty, and walked out. She had an incredibly designed gown with huge amount of diamonds, had gold dust in her hair, and no one was photographed at the Oscars more that night than Joan Crawford accepting for Anne Bancroft. And Betty hated her for it forever.
You miserable.
This movie is a really good movie because they are such good actresses and they are doing it wonderfully.
You can lose everything else, but you can't lose your talent.
I read a review that was wonderful. It said that if Betty Davis was the storm in this movie, Joan Crawford was the eye of the storm. And Joan underplays to Betty throughout this movie.
Don't you think I know everything that goes on in this house? You've been spying on me. What do you think?
And it really works, that opposite thing. You really feel for Joan Crawford, so that when the various twists happen at the end, Of course, it became a camp classic, and the lines are just innumerable lines. I especially love whenever Bette Davis would imitate Joan Crawford's voice, and they would get Crawford to read the lines, and then Bette would lip sync, would mouth the lines. There's one point where they're having an argument, and Joan says, "Jane, who was that at the door?" "Wasn't anyone, just that nosy Mrs. Bates. She went on and on about your picture."
Oh, really? Did she like it? Oh, really? Did she like it?
She liked it.
You know, and it's perfect. She just pulls Crawford. She just pulls her like this, you know. This movie is a classic because it still holds up, and they're still so good. There's a reason these two women were so loved and such iconic actresses, because they really loved the work. They just lived to work. And I think it still holds up to this day. I think you're going to be mesmerized by Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, Victor Buono, Marjorie Bennett, and Maidie Norman, and Robert Aldrich's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to
Can you see the pride thing?
to get
Is that okay?
Delicious things to eat.